Sonny Sandoval, lead singer of legendary band P.O.D. What's up, dude?
What's up, brother? I put on my glasses so I
That's
can
good,
see
man.
you.
You look very it looks like you're going to say a lot of very deep things when you got those glasses on.
I don't know about that.
I said looks like, I was just giving you the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Hey, there are so many places I want to go. It's been, man, I don't know, a couple of years at least since we've chatted.
Mhm.
But the thing that I want to start with, which is just the most important thing, dude, you have a day named after you. What's up, dude? June 23rd, Sunny Sandoval Day in San Diego. How did that
Yeah.
happen? That's pretty epic.
I I have no idea, man. I was actually I was doing a benefit show in San Diego a couple years ago, and it was for my one of my best friend's wife, and she's going through cancer, right? And so the bills are piling up, and so I got all the San Diego musicians to come together. That we're all a big, huge community, and then here we are having a great time raising money for this family, and then they present me, or he presents me at the Sunny Sandoval Day, and so it was incredible. But and then it ended up being on the 23rd of June, which is my
Oh,
mother's birthday. So they
that's
timed it
cool.
just
So
right.
on 4th
Yeah,
of July, we like barbecue
yeah.
and shoot off fireworks. What does one do on Sunny Sandoval Day? Like,
I don't know. I wish I can give everybody the day off,
and maybe the most important question
full
is, how
pay.
does your wife feel about this? Like, is she gonna give you extra special treatment on this day?
No, no. She
Oh,
always does, man. It was great. We were all
that's fun.
surprised, so it was a beautiful, yeah, it was a
Well,
beautiful
anyway,
day.
I know you're a man of God, and I know that it's probably kind of awkward on some levels, but it's cool to see you honored in that way. And man, how have you
Yeah.
been? What's been going on in your life? What's on your heart? So much to talk about, but let's just start very open ended. What's going on with you?
Uh, I mean, luckily we've been busy, since the beginning
Yeah,
of this year. We went over to Europe and supported Godsmack for about 5 weeks. So that was a huge European tour, and then we came home and did it was us and Seether and Nonpoint, and then now we're doing fly out dates. I released a book
yeah,
in February, so I'm doing book stuff, book events in between, and then we fly back out to Europe the end of July for a few shows and festivals, and then come back and then do the Cedar Daughtry tour to end
that's
off the
awesome.
year.
One thing I was talking about just
Yeah.
before this was the sad reality that a lot of kids who grow up in missional environments or church environments often end up having a very distorted view of God and can be very angry and upset. And as a
Mhm.
dad, and I know your son is on the road with you now, right? Talk to me, not always, but
Um,
how,
well, he's done. He did last year. He did, what was it, like
okay.
internship, and then this year he did a senior project right before he graduated, and so he was able to come out, get college
Oh,
credit, the whole nine, and it
that's
was
so cool.
amazing.
Talk to me about how you've navigated that. I know your life has been pretty intense and you've been on the
Yeah.
road, and how have you navigated maintaining that intention and concern for your family in the midst of what
Yeah.
has been, and continues to be a pretty crazy life?
Yeah, I mean, my kids grew up in all of this, you know what I mean? But once my two older girls, they would come out and fly out on the road. I mean, during Ozfest,
Yeah.
all that stuff, you know what I mean? But it was such a whirlwind for us. And, obviously when they got in their routine of school and sports and stuff like that, my wife homeschooled them, and she was here to be with them, when I couldn't, I was gone. My son was born. um, we decided that he was going to come on the road with me, and I was going to homeschool him from the tour bus, the green room, the dressing room, and that happened for probably the first 5 6 years of his life, and then he got settled into regular school. But I mean, we've always been open with our kids. You know what I mean? Our relationship with God is open. It's just like you were saying. Sometimes when you come from Christian families, they take on a burden. I think their intentions are good because they have a desire that the world knows Jesus the
Yeah.
way we know it. but sometimes it becomes a burden and a mission. And then they, their kids are forced into it and they never have any freedom. They're not even enjoying their life. They're not even knowing who God is in the moment. It's just like they're just these
Yeah.
worker bees. You know what I mean? And when my kids have always been out on the road, obviously you guard their heart. I mean, it's rock and roll. You know what I mean? But at the same time, we're not afraid of our
Right.
own shadows. And so, because we know who we are, and I allow my kids to fall in love with Jesus for themselves. It's not a
Mm.
forced thing, it's just a
Yeah.
live thing. And if anything, they see it more on the road because they're exposed to a lot of the things that go on the road,
Mm.
still guarding their heart. It's not like I'm giving them a
Yeah.
free
Yeah.
for all to, to just jump into whatever. I've still got to be a daddy, but they see it, but and I think our faith and even scripture starts to make more sense because they start to realize even in the early age that, man, this world is kind of crazy, and people are lost, and some people don't have meaning, and so for us being of faith, it's like it's not a forced thing. It's like, the best we can do is live our
Yeah.
life out so that people say, man, I'm down. I can see
Hmm.
it on you guys. And so it's not a burden. It's never been that way from my family. And being out, we've made so many great relationships. You know how many rock and roll bands? I go to festivals now, I go to shows, and they're like, how's Justice, man? How's the
Awesome.
kids? And it's like we connect on a
Yeah.
human level, but they know 100% what I believe in. It's never been hidden. You know what I mean? Because but I'm also vulnerable, and I don't go
Yeah.
in like I'm some, this Christian giant, or
Yeah.
you know what I mean, some spiritual giant, like I have it all figured out. They're just
Yeah.
seeing me, and me being a daddy, a husband, a friend, and trying to make some rock and roll music.
There's so much about what you said that resonates with me. I feel like what's so key is that you're the same on stage as you are off stage, right? And I think so
Yep.
often in ministry, we put on this persona and our kids can see through it, right? Because they see you all
Yes.
the time. And
Yes.
so if they see a big difference, that's
Yes.
a huge problem, right?
Huge, bro. And I never. I mean, I guess I've had a view behind the church curtain and in front for so long. You know what I mean? And even to this day, I still
Of
wrestle
course.
with a lot of it. You know what I mean? When I get with my bros and we
Yeah.
vent, you know what I mean, about the church and about Christians and all this stuff, we do the same thing. But I've also, I've been a Christian for a long time where I can just go to God by myself. I could ask my own questions. You know what I mean? I'm not intimidated by, guys that can quote a million scriptures at me, or, I've been a pastor for 30 years. It's like that doesn't mean anything to me. I mean, it does
Yeah. I know what you're saying.
respectfully, but I've seen the mightiest of men fall. I see the mightiest of men who are deceitful and wicked and come in the name of God and it's nothing but a money grab or
Yeah.
a money gain. Bro, I've seen
Yeah.
it all. But if anything, it makes me have more grace, and I'm just like, I know that but it allows me to recognize that that's
Hmm.
not God. I think a lot of problems with people, and even people that we know, Christians that we know that grew up in
Yeah.
religious homes, or they never really had that freedom. At the end of the day, when they're fed up or they've been weighed down so much, they're just like, I'm done with it all. I don't want anything to do with God. It's like, that's not God, bro. That's the dude next door to you. That's the same, you know, dorks that have been going to church with you your whole life, and that they don't have a
Yeah.
grasp on life. And they're using the God card, to to steer their way through
Hmm.
this world. And it's like, nah, that's not
Yeah.
freedom.
Yeah.
And
They're
so,
rejecting.
yeah, you have to
Yeah.
be
They're
open with it.
rejecting this sort of fake religious thing. And often they're,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I get it. I don't want it. I don't want that. But unfortunately, that's what the
Yeah.
world sees too. I think we've talked about this before, where it's like, well, I got sick of defending
Yeah.
Christianity because and to people out in the rock and roll world, because it's like, dude, you know what? You're right, dude. We are hypocrites. You know what? Yeah, you know what? That is wrong. And I don't like the way that these people act. You're
Mm.
absolutely right. But then I can also say, but that's not Jesus, man. We're 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 so flawed, you know what I mean? But Christians walk around
Hmm.
like we're not. we walk around like we got it all figured out. We walk around like, we get saved on Sunday, and then, we're baptized in a ministry, and we know it all by
Yeah.
the next Sunday, and then falling away by
Yeah.
the next Sunday. You know what I mean? It's
It
kind of
is.
silly, bro.
It is.
But I think we have to recognize that the world
Mm-hmm.
sees that. And so I think we should all just be honest and vulnerable. And at the end of the day, I am saying I don't have it figured out, but bro, I love Jesus, man, and I believe it. I believe it with all of my heart. If we could just talk or have a discussion about it, you know what I mean, and stop pointing
Yeah.
the fingers at religious people or at the church or at Christians, and just and read Scripture and know God for yourself. It's a whole different
Yeah, that's so
relationship.
good. And just to stick on this
Mm.
theme of parenting for a second, I know not everyone listening, they're parents, but one thing that you said that was so profound is you brought your kids into the real world. That was your workplace. And now you
Mhm.
were their dad and you cared about them.
Mhm.
But what they needed to see was that Jesus is relevant in the world that my dad occupies, right? That he's not just like
100%.
relevant on Sunday morning and Wednesday night, but then not relevant at all the rest of the time. So isn't so much of this about,
Yeah.
yes, sin is destructive. The world has destructive aspects to it, but man, Jesus loves these people and he's relevant to these people. And I think what you did was so brilliant because that helped them recognize that and didn't shelter them from that in a negative way.
100%. But I think it's not like yes, you're so right, and I have it figured out, and that's why I did it. It was like I took my son on the road because
Yeah.
I needed him, or
Yeah.
I needed that. I wanted to even at that time in my career, there was such a balance where I'm like, I didn't want anything to do with music anymore, and I was like, I'm so sick of all this stuff. And if anything, when he was with me, it just made me focus and concentrate on, dude, my number one job is to be a daddy.
Yeah.
That's it. The burden of having to save the world, or everybody sees, oh, Sonny or P.O.D, they're the Christian guys, right?
Yeah.
They're that
Yeah.
Christian band, right? So we have to be so proper and
Yeah.
march in a straight line so that we don't stumble anybody, so that we don't misrepresent all these things that after a while kind of weighs you
Yeah.
down, instead of being honest and saying, dude, I don't have it figured out, bro. But just because I claim to know Jesus doesn't mean I have it all
Yeah.
figured out, man. So when my son was there, it really took away the burden of having to go out and be perfect. You know what I mean? Like who was I to ever think that I was the
Yeah.
poster child for Christianity in the first
Yeah.
place? You know what I'm saying? But I stopped feeling that way, or maybe I was guilted into that, by religion, by the church. And maybe I just, after a while, I just stopped not caring about it, but it was more important to me. I mean, if I'm being honest, you know what, dude? Hey, if it's between the world and my son, I'm gonna pick
Yeah.
my son. I'm gonna pick my kids, and I'm not saying that as if
Yeah.
I don't care, but it made me shift my focus on, dude. I'm okay. I'm out here. I can't save
Yeah.
anybody. I can't save any of these. And you know what? Everybody's responsible for their own lives and what they do and their actions and consequences. But my son is only 5 years old, and he's with me. I have to be the best daddy that I can. And when I started to do that, um, people started to see just me being a daddy, and it really made me living out my faith so
Yeah.
much easier, because I wasn't burdened with the fact that I have to be a certain way. It was like, no, dude, I just forget not trying to mess up as being a Christian. I don't want to mess up
Yeah.
as being a
Yeah.
dad. I'm gonna mess up as being a
Yeah.
Christian. You know what I mean? But I gotta at least try my hardest not to mess this
Mm.
dad thing up. And people started to see that, and it'd be the end of the tour, and all the bands and crew guys would come up and be like, dude, thank you for sharing your son with us, man. This past 2 months, I love watching you and your son interact, and I just love seeing you guys at catering, and I'm not even
Yeah.
trying, you know what I mean? but that love of God is coming out and people are seeing it. But that reminds you again that it has to do with Jesus. It doesn't have anything to
Yeah.
do with me. I'm just
Yeah.
trying my
Yeah.
best.
And nothing will strip you of the delusion of your own perfection like being a dad, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it instantly makes
exactly,
you feel
bro.
like inadequate and helpless. And no,
Yeah,
and I think it's part
yeah.
of why the tragedy of so many people opting out of family and out of kids is they lose all of what
Mm.
you just described, where there's this beautiful grounding and crystallizing of ultimately the simplicity of what matters most. Like, yeah, you're trying to reach a lot of people, you care, but man, there's something
Yeah.
so profound in going, I don't want to mess this up. It kind of helps reduce the scope of
Yeah.
what you're even kind of capable of, which
Yeah.
is, man, I can barely handle myself, let alone this precious life.
Yeah.
And it's just so grounding, right? It just,
100%. But that's honest, bro. That's honest in saying that. How many times, in my walk and in my years, do I come across pastors' kids or missionary kids and stuff that their family was so focused on, they're in this mindset of saving the world and doing all these things that their own kids are falling by the wayside. And I've run across so many people, and I'm learning that too, because it's it's great intention, and the heart is, like you said, I want to see everybody come to know Jesus, like I know, and I want to see everybody at peace and happy and find themselves in God. um but the I have to make sure that I'm doing that, even with my own family first. And so the intention is good, because you really do want to see the world come to know God, but it's not your burden. Even if you're a pastor, even if you are a missionary, the moment you decided to get married and have kids, it's like it
yeah.
starts there
Yeah. And I
first.
think reflecting on life with the end in mind, right? Because when I think about my life,
Hmm.
and I've gotten to do some incredible things and see the world and be on a stage and all these different things, but I know, as I know with you, that the thing you're going to care
Hmm.
about most at the end of it all is, did I love Jesus? Did I love my wife? Did I love my kids? And if you didn't check those three
Yeah.
boxes, if you didn't give absolutely your
Yeah.
best to those three, nothing else you did
What's
matters.
the
Nothing matters,
No,
right? And so it's
no.
like, for me, it's like Augustine
Yep.
talks about ordering your loves. It's not that these things are wrong, but if they're out of order, they're wrong.
No.
And so you can't love Jesus
Yes.
less than your wife, or you won't love her like you should. And you can't love the world less than you love your wife, or you won't love them like you should. And so it's not this
Yes.
false dichotomy, right? Of well, if I got to either
Right.
choose the world or my kid, well, that's ridiculous. It's about the order.
No, 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 no. Yeah, yeah, and we're constantly learning that. And unfortunately, when you do get older, you start to slow down a little bit, and you're like, oh my gosh, it is really so
Mm,
simple. But I get it. I mean, those of us that really do have a calling and feel like they have to, they want to reach the world for Jesus. Like I said, it's not a burden, but you're it's a calling, and you want to see that happen. But when you do have a wife and you have kids, it's like there is such
yeah.
a balance. And I think, like I said before, when people, I just allowed people to see me loving my kids and my son on the road. It spoke louder than any preaching, bro. You know what I mean? Any
Hmm.
type of ministry that I thought I was doing, or I wanted to do. They just saw me being a daddy first, and that
Yeah.
was refreshing. That was refreshing to a lot of these guys on the road, because it was reminding them that, yeah, a lot of these guys do have families at home. A lot of these guys know the difference between right and wrong and who they hope to be and want to be, but they're also divided by this thing we call rock and roll. You know what I mean? Because they're still living out their fantasies. You know what I mean? But and then trying to have that side of their life as well, and all of a sudden I'm bringing my kid right into rock and roll. It's like, oh wow, okay, well, I guess maybe I should check
Yeah.
myself.
There's when you kind of talk about the band and the label of Christian and the tension that creates, you can feel it. You can feel it in your voice. You can
Mm,
feel it in that way you've described it in various places. And yet, I don't think you disagree that art and music, and I would add to that now content and social media and all these platforms, they come with an unparalleled ability to communicate something. And so
mm,
how have you wrestled with that tension of not wanting to kind of carry a burden that no human being can carry, and not being confined to a box that perhaps would limit you, and yet at the same time be faithful with the platform that God has given you and the opportunity that he I think wants us to take advantage of, to tell people the truth through
Yeah.
whatever platform God may or may not give us.
Yeah. I think in all my, the last 33 years, I think whenever I've tried to like force it, or I felt a certain pressure that I was supposed to do a certain way, I've learned, just even in an experience, that I look back and I cringe at a lot of stuff, bro, because it was me trying to. It's almost like you're just doing what religious people tell you to do, rather than be your authentic self and genuine, and even believe that's enough. You know what I mean? Believe that my regular vulnerable conversation with somebody, when I'm intentional in the back of my mind, like you know these things when you know hurting people, and you're like, sometimes people just want to be heard, and then sometimes people are like, I know that, no, I'm going to share the Lord with this person because they really need it. You know what I mean? And you're intentional with it. But now, even 33 years later, it's an open book. People know that I love the Lord, that I try my best. So now it's not like it's a hidden thing. When I was at a show yesterday and I have a conversation. This girl came up to me telling me how she was on drugs for so many years, and she heard me. She said sermon, but I think it was just me sharing on some interview. This was like 9 years ago, and it was broadcasted on the radio. And she was telling me how she was tweaked out of her mind, and she still remembers that. You know what I mean? So now people just know this, and then I can just have honest conversation with them. But it's not. I don't go in there like to make a spectacle or a scene. Some people just want to be seen that way. I'm more intentional with one on one, but it's also just an experience and a discernment that we have as believers, from just walking with the Lord for such a long time. But I think when you're just honest with people and genuine, they can sense that. But if you're just walking, I'm not and I need it to be the Lord. I'm not going to walk into a room. Let me tell you all about Jesus, and this is what you need. Here's the 5 steps
Mm,
you need to do. I'm so sick of that stuff, because those are the kind of people that just walk and say, and then now they're filming themselves and saying, look,
yeah.
look what I did. Look at how I serve the Lord. I'm a true follower of God because I'm not compromising. I'm unashamed of the gospel. And they're doing all these things for show, or to make themselves feel better. But for me, it's kind of like the long haul game, and I believe being on stage for 33 years, I'm a seed caster, bro. Like, obviously I have my one-on-ones and my personal relationships, but I just believe that for years I've been able to go up there and just throw seeds out into the world, saying God loves you, He's for you. I mean, he knows you, He wants you to
Yeah.
know Him, and bro, luckily I've been able to see things in and out, in confirmations in the last 33 years that says, hey, dude, just trust God, and stick with me. And I might not ever know, how it all turns out until the end, but for now, I'm just
Yeah.
staying faithful.
Yeah. I think ultimately it's a vine and a branch thing, right? Like God doesn't call you necessarily to do X, Y, and Z other than remain in Him and foster
Yeah,
and fuel that ongoing connection and intimacy with Jesus. And then out of that, do whatever He is asking you to do. I think part of the tension in my mind is a couple of things. I think one, just the urgency, right? Like the world is crazy and people
mm,
are dying and desperate. And I think if we fully
yeah,
felt the weight of that, we'd be immobilized, right? We couldn't even get out of bed because we would just,
yeah,
if we could hear the spiritual screaming all around us, I think it would be overwhelming. So we can't completely
yeah.
live under that weight. And yet at the same time, I look at the Apostle Paul, and there was this is all that matters. Christ and Him
No, for
crucified. Like I
sure,
consider all else garbage. And so I guess I'm just trying
for
to
sure.
find that tension. Is there a non-religious, non self-motivated, healthy spiritual pressure to take advantage of every opportunity
Yeah,
to tell people what really matters?
one 100%. I mean, the more that I think the longer that I've walked with the Lord, and the more intimate of a relationship you have, yeah, and then you start to see, it's just a wisdom, it's the spirit. Even when you see the world how it is,
Yeah.
your heart should break. I never want to be. I mean, I see Christians that they look at the world and their nose is up, and because they're so disgusted with all the sin and how crazy this world is. Like, I
Yeah.
think opposite. I look at the world and I'm like, because I know that God He desires
Yeah.
that no one should perish. And I'm looking at the world, even though I can sit there and be like, man, this world is wild, it's crazy, it's lost. There's at the forefront of all that, my heart is still saying the world needs Jesus. They've
Yeah.
always needed Jesus. They'll continue to need Jesus. So yeah, when you see that, or not only is it the hey man, this world needs Jesus, I have to tell them, or it's like there's another urgency that's like, dude, you don't understand. It's not what you've been taught. It's not what you've been shown. God is so good. He's so amazing. He's so cool. I just want you to know him. You know what I mean? But that's where the spirit and discernment
Yeah.
comes in. You know, I'll never if I felt like the spirit told me to walk up to somebody right now and share
Yeah.
the gospel, I would with
Yeah.
instantly. But I also believe that sometimes there's a spirit that's saying, "Hey, just let them
Yeah.
see your life." You know what I mean? So so in that way, in both situations, I know that God
Yeah.
is in control. You know what I mean? And I know that it's natural when it happens that way. Sometimes, you know, I've had strangers come up to me and not even knowing my band or anything, and ask me
Yeah.
questions, and then I'm all of a sudden I'm sharing with them the gospel, and then when I leave, I'm like, see, that's what I want it to be. I want it to
Yeah.
be the Lord. I don't want it to be me walking up to
Yeah.
some stranger. Hey,
Yeah.
do you know Jesus? Do you know that he died on the cross? It's like a
Yeah.
pressure thing, you
Yeah.
know. But if someone comes up to you and asks a
Yeah.
stranger, bro, and asks you about Jesus, they don't know who you are, you don't know who they are. To me, that's like
Yeah.
that's cool, dude. That's undeniably
Mm.
the Lord right
I
there.
love 1 Peter 3:15, where it says, "Be prepared to give a defense for the hope that is in you." And
Mm.
I don't know why it took me so long to focus on the word hope. It doesn't say, "Be prepared to give a defense for all of the good ideas you have, or all the Bible verses you've memorized, or all the perfect theology you have, or all the." It says the hope,
Yeah, yeah,
right? And in a
the
way,
hope.
there's almost a passive element to that, where it's like you're ready, but you're not necessarily the one who's like ramming down the door. Now, again, for me, I guess the tension is just like I know myself, bro, and like I don't want to do hard things. I don't want to look foolish. I don't want to be rejected. I don't, you know
Yeah.
what I
Oh,
mean? And so
yes.
part of me is
Ooh.
cognizant of that, and yet I know the difference in my spirit when it's out of love and obedience to Jesus, and when it's out of self-righteous
Yeah.
guilt. And sometimes I've been
Yeah.
motivated out of self-righteous guilt and it's been wrong. And other times I just feel like out of a love for my dad, he's saying, Ben, I want you to care more about them than your
Yeah.
reputation. Will you be willing to look foolish for me? And so it's that tension I'm wrestling with,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%, bro. But I think we recognize that
Yeah.
voice and in our older years, and I think it takes time, but that's why God is so patient. I think when we feel all that pressure in the beginning, a lot of that is immaturity as well, and we just again we think we're doing the steps of Christianity when it's like God is patient. You know what I mean? He wants to walk. He's walking with us. He just wants us to recognize that. And here I am now, all these years later, and I could still say, I don't. I'm still walking with God. I love God more than ever, but it's just because of the time that I have in this, and it's and getting to know Him. Um, and so I'm willing to
Yeah.
do whatever. I want to finish. I just want to finish this. In God's timing and what He wants to do. And I'm grateful, and I believe this platform
Yeah.
it's incredible. I didn't ask for it, you know what I mean. And there's many times when I asked to give it back, but here I am now, and still loving people and the relationship that I've created with so many people. Not only rock stars and people in the celebrity world, but just friends and fans all over the world.
Yeah.
And so I'm believing in that. I'm believing that it means something. Because if it doesn't, then man, what a waste.
Oh
You
man.
know?
You talk about the tension of the platform, and something I've been wrestling with is that with every high profile Christian that falls. I think about Ravi Zacharias, who I
Mhm.
loved. I think about now Michael
Ah,
Tate. And I just think about all of these guys. And I'm not here to dunk on anyone. And man, I need
I
Jesus
know, I know.
every day, always.
Yep,
But I've been having this
yep,
developing theory in my head that money and fame are like growth serum into the tumors that are in our bodies. Like, in other words, whatever
yep,
I will naturally gravitate towards from a sin perspective, the more money and the more fame you put into that, the more potential that has to
Yeah.
grow and blow up my life. You
Yep.
have actual authority in both of those areas. Talk to me about this tension, because a lot of people I meet, man, they want platform, and usually with platform comes all the other things. What has your
Yeah.
relationship been like to these things, and how have you stayed strong, bro? Because it's a messy, sad world out there, and it seems to be getting worse.
Yeah. I mean, by this has been such a learning process, but I think if anything, the fear of God has been such a healthy thing
Yeah,
in my life. You know what I mean? But not only that, the gratitude. Like, dude, I if anything, I can look back hindsight now and say, man, I wouldn't trade anything for my relationship with God. There's, and obviously I'm not, I mean, if we're just being honest, I'm not a rich man. I'm a blue collar, rock
yeah,
and roller. You know what I mean? I'm still here trying to do it. I've been through my ups and
yeah,
downs with all that, but I've also seen, I've also had money. I've also been to the coolest of parties and events and hanging with the who's who of the world. And uh, you're it's captivating. Because it's the world.
yeah,
The
of
world is
course.
glittery. The world is gold, and you're just like, wow, what a trip. And you can stare a little longer than you should, and you can watch a little longer than you should. But at the end of the day, you're like, I wouldn't trade it for nothing. My peace that I have, you know what I mean? Just my the love that I've been shown, the mercy and grace that I've been shown by God. I wouldn't sacrifice that for nothing. But that is also something you have to recognize all the time. And I see believers, um I mean, not only in the Christian world, but people that have grew up in the church, and then they had a little success, and they've just gone way over the deep end, and they were never even considered a person of faith,
Right.
or they were, but they have the conviction. I do believe that they're believers, but the world just ate them up, and eventually they'll spit them out. I do have Again, I have all the grace in the world, but even for the people that you mentioned, as heartbreaking as it is, it's just like we're all susceptible to it. But then there's a side that says, "No, man, I don't get it, dude. I get that there's an enemy and he's real, but I also believe that there's a side of us that just
Yeah,
went too far or allowed it to happen. You know what I mean? And that's where, bro. I mean, whether you're a believer or not, pride is the biggest killer. And egos, and where are you going to catch that more than ever? And when you're a celebrity, or everybody's looking at you. If anything, I always feel like, even before I was in a band, I don't like that. I don't want to be seen. You know what I mean? I don't want to be. I'm the guy in the back that just wants to help get the job done. I don't need to be up front. That's why even all the social media stuff and the selfies and all that, I just, bro, it makes me nervous. Like, it just makes me
yeah,
anxious. But people crave that. People love that attention. But that's the opposite of being broken. That's the opposite of, like, of coming to that place where it's like, dude, I need Jesus so much. You know what I mean? Not that we're beating ourselves up, but when you recognize, dude, no, what Jesus did for me, like, this is, I don't want to ever
yeah,
abuse that. I mean, I can, because
yeah,
I'm flawed, but my intention in my heart is saying, Lord, I never want to abuse your trust, or I never want to abuse
yeah,
your grace, because it is so good, and I won't trade it for anything. But I am going to make mistakes, and so
yeah.
please continue to pour your
Mm.
grace on me.
There's a beautiful tension I think you're describing, that every human being wants to be both fully known and fully loved. And by fully known, I
Yeah,
mean flaws and all, right? Like, because the
yeah,
reality is we can lie to the world, but we can't really lie to ourselves. We know how flawed we really are.
mm,
And to the world, we hide, right? We hide for various reasons. Maybe it's pride. Maybe it's the idea that if people really knew me, they wouldn't love me.
mm,
Jesus is the only one in which we can be fully known and fully
yeah,
loved. But we have to
yeah,
live in that tension, right? Because what I hear in your voice is a recognition of your indebtedness to the grace of God. And if
yeah,
you forget that, you start to feel pretty good about how loved you are. But you forget the fully known part. Now, if you're feel the fully known part, but forget the love part, you start to feel self-loathing, and maybe you're motivated out of religious guilt. So it's that
Yeah.
tension you're talking about, right? Where it's like, man,
Yeah.
while I was yet a sinner, Christ came to die for me. It's that
Yeah.
profound, mind-bending reality that keeps me in the sweet spot, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's such a wild trip, bro, this walk with God. That's why that's why when everybody they just see Christianities or even Christians, we're whatever, we're boring, we're too judgmental, we're all these things. Like, no, you don't understand. It's such a this is a crazy walk with the Lord, you know what I mean? And the learning and the good things we go through, the experience in it all is such it's such an amazing process. And I've been walking with God for so long, and it's in it, bro. I realize it how much I really don't know. You know what I mean, and how much I'm still continuing to learn. But it's all on the sweet side. It's all on the sweet side. Looking back now and be like, oh Lord, you were so good to me even then, and I didn't even recognize it. You know what I mean? Or you protected me and
Wow.
you watched out for me then, and you really do start to see this intimate relationship that God is with us. And so why would I ever feel like he's against me or at what point, or I don't understand. I mean, I do understand why the world feels like he's against them. You know what I mean? I was at a show yesterday and I saw this guy's shirt and it said, and for a second, it kind of broke my heart. It's like, but it just says, God hates facts. And it's like, I would love to just have a conversation with this guy. You know what I mean? Like it's as easy as that. Just to ask him about his shirt. Or did you ever see what was that? There was that old band, and it's so crude. I forget the band now, but it's so blasphemous. And every time I see a kid with that shirt, my heart breaks. It says Jesus is that you probably already know. It's this band, and it's just the most foul word ever. And I've had conversations with the kid at a skate park about it, and he didn't even know what he was doing. You know what I mean? He thought he was
Yeah.
being cool. He thought he was being punk rock, and it's like, bro, if you only a side of me comes off a little aggressive at first because there's a side of me that says, dude, that's my king, and I'm ready to rip the shirt off you right now and put you down. But then the other side kicks in and says, the God
Yeah.
side, and says, no, he just doesn't know me. But I know one day when this kid does know who God is, he's gonna look back and be like, I can't believe I ever wore that shirt, man. And that will drive him. That brokenness will drive him to follow God even more because he realizes, no, God, you're so good, and I unintentionally
Yeah.
tried to hurt you, and I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that. I just didn't know, So it's a crazy
Yeah.
trip, dude. The things that we
Hmm.
learn, and if we could look back at our, all those. When I look back at all those years when I first gave my life to the Lord, like I wish I would have just. Again, I always tell people, just sit at the Lord's feet, man. Like stop. You have to. It's okay. Trial and error. You got to learn for yourself. Obviously, you surround yourself with people that are good for you and you in authority but know the scripture. If you're just letting someone else tell you, like, bro, I don't trust
Yeah.
anybody. You know what I mean? I don't. I mean, not. I don't want to be negative, but I just like I've had so much bad counsel around me where it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm just gonna keep following the Lord, and let Him speak
That's
to my
awesome.
heart.
You back to kind of a previous question I asked, and we can wrap it up pretty soon. But you kind of resist the Christian label and thinking about it as it relates to those that fall. Man, do you feel like the whole idea of Christian celebrity, Christian fame, does that add a layer of attack and complexity that maybe is at some of the heart of why you resist that? Because it's kind of like, man, I know who I am, I know what I need. And to kind of then
Yeah,
pedestalize me that way, I mean, and can't that, on some level, isn't that
yeah,
just inevitably setting you up to fail?
yeah. Well, it's kind of opposite of. I mean, I don't understand. Like, even where's the brokenness? Where's the humility? Like, that's the opposite of a servant. You know what I mean? I get it. I can't help. For me, like I'm in a rock band. You know what I mean? I can't hide. But it's not because I crave it, or it's not because I even want it. You know what I mean? But there's the other side of it too, where it's like we always felt like we always felt like we were called to the world. Like I didn't even know what Christian hardcore was or Christian rock. I didn't know any of that stuff. I thought everybody was, dude, if you're in a band, you just
Yeah.
make music. You know, like I didn't call it that was Christian rock or that was Buddhist
Yeah.
rap
Yeah.
or I didn't label stuff like that. The same way, you know, if I need my car, I've said this before, if my kid's car needs to be fixed and I'm driving down the street and I see a mechanic shop and he's got the fish up there, I don't, bro, in that moment, I don't care what your faith is. I don't care what your relationship with God is. I need the best man possible or woman possible to fix my kid's car so that it doesn't break down on the freeway. So but we've been trained in whatever our Christianity, our churches. Oh, there's a fish on their
Yeah.
their business card.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm gonna go to him. I'm gonna go to him. Not the guy could have just started fixing cars yesterday, but because he used the God card and put a fish on it, all of a sudden you're trusting him to do
Mhm.
that. You know what I mean? So I don't. And to go back to what you're saying, I never wanted to use the name of God to promote my band because if anything in this style of music it
Right.
never helped. If I was doing gospel or country, I get where the lines blur a little bit, you know what I mean, or softer music. But when we came into a more hardcore and metal world, you mentioned Jesus, you
Yeah.
already suck. You know what I mean? Your
Yeah.
music sucks according
Right.
to
Immediately.
them.
Yeah.
So it's not like it ever did us a favor. So we always knew that we had to be, 20 times better than the bands we were playing with. So even those guys that are like, oh, I heard these dudes were Christians, man. And then they watch you and they're like, oh, whatever, dude. All right, they're okay. They don't want to give it up to you because they know that you're a believer. So we've had to deal with that forever. But I've also done Christian shows where the band actually does really suck. They're horrible. They shouldn't even be a band, but yet they're up there, and then no one's feeling them. So then what do? They start using the
Hmm.
God card. Everybody say Jesus, Jesus, and then they're using that, and I never wanted to do that. He's like, don't
Right.
do that. Don't do that. So again, but you are setting yourself up. Yeah, that's hard, man. I never wanted to be caught in that world, but I never wanted to use the name of God to try to promote my band. And it never really worked in hardcore, or at least when we started, it wasn't like,
No.
it was never a thing. But I start to see people do that now, and it's like, I get their intentions. They no compromise. They want to get up there and they want to be the strongest voice, the biggest muscles for the Lord. You know what I mean? But they also reach a place when they are actually dealing with the real world now. And you've seen them just like I've seen them, bro. They start to take a step back because it's like it's harder than you thought. Now that people are actually
Yeah.
watching you, and now that these people like your band and you have a little money in your pocket now, it's a little harder. And I'm not saying it can't be done. There's also a reality to it all that's like, oh, now I really am forced to live out what I've been saying because it was easier when I could just scream it from
Yeah.
the rooftops. But now people are watching a lot more intensely, and so yeah, that's when we see a lot of people just either fall big time or they just
Yeah.
give it away,
Yeah. And it's like
and it
it
sucks.
totally
It
does. And
sucks.
it's on some levels when the goals and the essence of what it means to follow Jesus are antithetical to the goals and the essence of what it means to be on that stage. Something's got to give in the long run,
Yeah.
right? And so it's a hard balance, which is I sense even in the way you describe it, the tension, the push and the pull, the
Mm.
like, okay, God, but like, because it's
Yeah.
complicated, man. It's like Francis Schaeffer used to say, man, if
It
God gives you
is.
a stage, you should get on it, but then you should get off as soon as you can, right? And I think it's a bit of that tension of
Hmm.
recognizing that there is great opportunity, but man, there is great risk, and people need to be
Yeah.
cautious and eyes open when they're entering in. Maybe just to end here, dude, like I could just go all day. God has put such a spirit of grace
Yeah.
and humility on you and insight, and I really appreciate it. You wrote a book on all of
Thanks,
this,
man.
and people should get
Yeah.
it. So tell me about it. Tell me where people can get it. Let's just end there.
It's I think it's obviously it's online everywhere. It's in a lot of stores. It's funny. I had Randy Bly from Lamb of God text me yesterday, and he was in San Diego. He said, "Hey, I I saw your book in the bookstore at the airport. I said, no way, dude. I'm like, I had no idea. And he's like, that's a big deal. And I said, maybe I just got some San Diego love or something. I said, because I
Oh,
had
that's
no
cool.
idea, that it was there. But it's everywhere, man. And it's just kind of it's a fast paced look through my life. You know what I mean? Where I grew up, my family, my friends. My mom passing away, which really made me stop and pause for a moment. And because I watched her be in love with Jesus, it drove me to want to know what she knew. And so, and then all of a sudden here I am in a band that I never had a desire to be in, or even be. I don't even like being in front of people. I still have that shyness about me where it's just like, it's not my thing. I don't want to be in front of the camera. So, but it just takes you through joining the band, takes you through our independent years, signing to a major label, the ups and the downs. And it's just another extension of me trying to relate this message of my faith.
Cool.
That's it. It's, like you said, talking about that platform, it's like, boy, I try to do as much as I can, more than I can outside of that hour
Yeah.
on stage. That, you know what I mean? Because that's, you can be or say or do whatever you want when you're on that stage, but I want to be intentional when I'm off stage, and whether it's community work, whether it's charity work, everything, whether it's just loving my family, my friends, and being available to live out my faith. I want to do that, and this is just an extension to be able to read it. And at the end of the day, I'm just still trying to point people towards Jesus,
Awesome.
man. That's
And it's
it.
called Son of Southtown, correct? Awesome.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Well,
Son
we'll
of
put the
Southtown.
links everywhere so people can find it. But dude, I
Awesome,
really
man.
appreciate you. Your heart is awesome, pure gold. I'd love to have you on again.
Thanks,
Maybe not,
man.
let's not wait 3
Anytime,
years,
bro.
Who knows if either of us will be around, maybe the world will come to an end between now and then. So we got to make it sooner than
Yeah.
that.
Who
But dude, thank
knows?
you.
You never
Appreciate
know.
you. I'll be praying for
Thank
you
you,
and your
man.
family and for this next season and for this book. And just keep up the good work, man. Appreciate you.